They told you crypto was freedom, a rebellion, a digital uprising against the slow-moving giants of the old world. And perhaps in the beginning, it was, but every revolution begins with a lie that feels like salvation. Crypto emerged at the perfect moment, a time when trust in governments had eroded, when banks felt like corrupt monarchies, when inflation hollowed savings like a silent plague. People were craving escape, craving autonomy, craving a new language of wealth that didn't require permission from a world that had already failed them. And so the dream was born: decentralization, equality, opportunity. But Machiavelli warned us centuries ago, the promise of freedom is the oldest mask worn by those who seek power. Crypto didn't begin as a currency, it began as a story, a myth, a beautifully engineered illusion powerful enough to ignite the imaginations of millions. Because before a man loses his money, he first loses his clarity. And millions walked into the digital wilderness believing they were escaping control, not realizing they were stepping into a new kind of kingdom, one that looked like liberation but behaved like a labyrinth. A blockchain is not just code, it is belief woven into machinery. It is hope written into mathematics. It is the idea that maybe, just maybe, you could become one of the few who break free from the gravity of your life. But Machiavelli's first rule of power is simple. Men are driven by hope far more than reason. Crypto weaponized that hope, not maliciously, not intentionally, but inevitably, because the moment you give the masses a dream of escape, the dream becomes a commodity. And that commodity becomes a battlefield. In the early years, every chart felt like a prophecy. Every green candle felt like a sign from the universe. Every bull run felt like the moment the world was finally cracking open, revealing a hidden tunnel to prosperity. But that's the thing about illusions. They don't need to be lies. They only need to be incomplete truths. Crypto did offer freedom to a few. It did create wealth for a handful. It did transform destinies for those who understood what it truly was. But for the many, it became something else entirely. The playground of hope became the arena of manipulation. The marketplace of opportunity became the marketplace of sacrifice. The dream of decentralization became a labyrinth of human behavior: fear, greed, FOMO, herd mentality. Just as Machiavelli predicted, he said, "The people will always chase what they desire most, even when it leads them to ruin." And crypto became the perfect mirror for human desire. Millions entered not because they understood blockchain, but because they understood pain. The pain of working endlessly and gaining nothing. The pain of watching others rise while they. That window. That forbidden store. But what they didn't realize is that the moment a dream becomes mass adopted, it becomes mass exploited. The dream of freedom attracted opportunists. The promise of autonomy attracted manipulators. The idea of getting rich faster attracted predators who understood exactly how to weaponize emotion. And so the first lie of freedom slowly revealed itself. People didn't want decentralization. They wanted escape. And escape is the easiest desire to manipulate. The architects of early crypto, the quiet thinkers, the cynics, the idealists turned realists, understood something the masses never saw. Hope is the most valuable currency in a collapsing world. And those who control hope control the market. Look back at financial history. Every bubble, every mania, every frenzy, every collapse. It always begins the same way. A new technology emerges, a new opportunity appears, a new story spreads, a new dream catches fire, and then the many rush in. The few prepare, because Machiavelli warned that people do not learn from past illusions. .com bubble, housing market, stocks, NFTs, meme coins, AI tokens, whatever comes next. The objects change. Human nature does not. And that is why crypto became the perfect modern battlefield for power. Because it disguised itself as liberation. From the old kings while quietly creating new ones. Not bankers in glass towers. Not politicians behind podiums. Not CEOs with polished smiles, but silent rulers. Digital princes. Invisible strategists who understood the new war was not fought with swords or laws, but with narratives and liquidity. Crypto was never just money. It was a psychological revolution. And like all revolutions, it required believers. True believers. Devoted believers. Believers willing to risk everything for the promise of something more. Those believers became the foundation upon which the new empires were built. Because as Machiavelli said, every new power rises on the backs of those who believe too deeply. Crypto gave hope to millions. And hope, beautiful blinding hope, led them straight into the first lie. Not that crypto would free them, but that freedom was ever free, and in that silence, the truth whispers. Every market tells a story, but crypto tells 1,000 stories at once, each louder, faster, and more intoxicating than the last. And inside this digital storm, one truth rises above all: narratives move money. And those who control the narratives control the market. This is the hidden architecture of deception, a structure so elegant, so quiet, so omnipresent that most investors never realize they're living inside it. Machiavelli wrote, "Men are governed by what they believe, not by what is true." Crypto embraced that idea with absolute perfection. Behind every pump, there is a whisper. Behind every crash, there is a rumor. Behind every trending token, there is a storyteller. And the market? It is not built on code. It is built on belief. The charts people worship like sacred scriptures are not reflections of value. They are reflections of collective psychology. Every candle is human emotion. Every breakout is shared delusion. Every crash is synchronized fear. The architecture of deception isn't malicious. It is natural, inevitable, predictable. Because whenever thousands of people gather around an idea they do not fully understand, someone, somewhere steps forward to shape the belief for them. Influencers, founders, VCs, marketing teams, anonymous accounts with animal profile pictures, all become actors in the great theater of perception. And the audience? The retail investors, the dreamers, the hopeful, the ones searching for the life-changing moment. But Machiavelli warned us, the crowd is easily persuaded because it wants to be persuaded. Crypto is persuasion turned into profit. A new token launches. A narrative is born. A promise is crafted. A story is told. This is the future. This is the next big thing. This is the moment you've been waiting for. It sounds like opportunity, but it is often strategy. Those at the top understand the oldest law of power: sell people what they want to believe, not what is real. Most coins aren't built for adoption. They're built for extraction. Roadmaps are written for optics. White papers are written for trust. Discord communities are built to maintain belief. But the real game is invisible. The real game is in the hands that accumulate quietly before the hype and disappear quietly after the peak. In every bull run, you can see the pattern. A story is planted, believers gather, liquidity rises, insiders exit silently. The crowd holds the fallout. And yet they return every time. Not because they are foolish, but because they are human. Humans are addicted to hope. Hope is the drug. Crypto is the delivery system. This is why manipulation in crypto rarely requires direct force. It requires timing, suggestion, and silence. Whales don't need to say a word. Their movements speak for them. Founders don't need to promise anything. Their silence fuels speculation. Influencers don't need to lie. They only need to imply. This is the architecture Machiavelli understood long before blockchain ever existed. Control perception, and you control reality. And in crypto, reality bends rapidly under the weight of narrative. Project is worthless until enough people believe it isn't. A token is trash until someone with influence calls it treasure. A community is dead until a rumor resurrects it. A coin is doomed until a billionaire tweets a single emoji. In this world, truth moves slowly, narratives move instantly, and money follows narratives. That is why the few win, not because they are smarter, but because they study the pulse of the crowd like a scientist studying storms. They understand that markets are not mathematical. They are theatrical. Sentiment is the script. Liquidity is the applause. Panic is the final act. So the few build positions while the many build dreams. The few watch emotions while the many watch memes. The few follow silence while the many follow influencers. The few obey cycles while the many obey impulses. Because in this game, the ones who speak the loudest often know the least. And the ones who know the most rarely speak at all. Machiavelli warned, "The wise man does secretly what the fool does openly." Watch how whales act. Watch how retail behaves. And you'll see the entire philosophy play out like a script written centuries ago. The market punishes noise, rewards patience, destroys ego, feeds on belief, and devours anyone who thinks they can win by emotion alone. This is the architecture no one warns you about. Crypto is not a marketplace. Crypto is a psychological battlefield dressed as a financial opportunity. And on this battlefield, the weapon is not money. The weapon is narrative. The few craft it, the many consume it. And the market moves in the direction the story flows. Because in the world of crypto, just as Machiavelli predicted, the belief of the many always enriches the strategy of the few. And in that silence, the truth whispers. If you want to understand crypto, you cannot start with charts. You must start with people. Because the market is not numbers. It is emotion wearing the mask of mathematics. Machiavelli wrote that rulers do not need chains to control the masses. They only need emotion strong enough to blind them. Crypto has mastered this principle with surgical precision. The markets are not controlled by technology. They are controlled by fear, greed, hope, and despair, looping endlessly in a cycle as predictable as the seasons. A bull market begins with curiosity, then transforms into euphoria, then degenerates into entitlement, and ends in panic. Every time, without variation, without mercy. People say crypto is decentralized, but human psychology is not. The crowd thinks as one, feels as one, panics as one. And in that collective emotional storm, the few move silently, strategically, deliberately. Most people enter crypto for freedom. But Machiavelli would whisper, a man seeking freedom is most vulnerable to manipulation. Because when people seek liberation, they willingly surrender reason. Look at the crowd during a bull run. They refresh charts as if waiting for divine judgment. They cling to influencers like desperate believers seeking prophecy. They gamble, not invest. They follow hype, not knowledge. They romanticize risk while ignoring danger. This is not rational behavior. This is obedience, not the obedience of laws, but the obedience of emotion. The masses obey fear. They obey greed. They obey the illusion of opportunity. They obey the dream of making it. That dream is the leash, and it is pulled slowly, gently, invisibly. When prices rise, the crowd obeys greed. It will keep rising. When prices stall, the crowd obeys hope. This is just a dip. When prices fall, the crowd obeys denial. It can't go lower. When prices collapse, the crowd obeys fear. I must sell before it hits zero. These four emotions, greed, hope, denial, fear, are the real market cycle. The charts simply reflect them, and the few who understand this become the new princes of the digital age. Because they do not obey emotions, they observe them. They watch the fear of the crowd like a predator watching prey. They sense the moment greed takes over long before the chart shows it. They feel when the herd is about to stampede. and position themselves accordingly. Machiavelli said, "He who masters the minds of the people masters the future." Crypto investors think they are making decisions, but most are reacting to fear, to hype, to influencers, to narratives, to shadows. In truth, they are not playing the game. They are the game. Their fear becomes liquidity. Their hope becomes exit liquidity. Their panic becomes opportunity. Their obedience becomes profit for someone else. And yet, they blame the market. They blame projects. They blame manipulation. They blame bad luck. But Machiavelli would tell them, a man ruled by emotion is never wrong. He is simply outplayed. Crypto exposes the emotional architecture of the human mind in real time. Greed spikes gives volume spikes. Fear spikes gives liquidity drains. Hope spikes gives narratives trend. Panic spikes gives bottoms form. It is a rhythm, a pattern, a psychological heartbeat. Retail investors always move in unison, millions acting as one organism, responding to the same emotional stimuli, but the few, the cold, the patient, the Machiavellian, they do not feel this rhythm. They read it. They understand that the crowd believes a bull run is a reward, when in truth, it is a setup. They understand that the crowd thinks crashes are punishment, when in truth, they are resets. They understand that when the masses scream, "This time is different," it is exactly the same as last time, because human nature has no version updates. It has no upgrades. It repeats ancient patterns disguised as modern mistakes. Crypto is new. Human psychology is not. And in this mismatch, a power dynamic emerges. The many act. The few anticipate. The many react. The few accumulate. The many panic. The few conquer. This is the psychology of obedience, not imposed by rulers, but imposed by the very emotions that govern human nature. No one forces the crowd to buy the top. Greed does. No one forces them to sell the bottom. Fear does. No one forces them to hold losing positions. Denial does. No one forces them back in after losses. Hope does. Crypto is not a financial system. It is a mirror showing people who they really are. And most people do not like what they see. Because beneath the numbers, beneath the charts, beneath the strategies, the truth is brutally simple. People do not lose money in crypto. They lose to their own emotions. And Machiavelli would tell them with cold clarity, a man who cannot govern himself will always be governed by others. And in that silence, the truth whispers. Most people enter crypto searching for a miracle, a shortcut, a way out of the slow, suffocating gravity of ordinary life. But the few, the true winners, enter for something else entirely. They enter for advantage, not financial advantage, but psychological advantage, because crypto is not a game of intelligence. It is a game of emotional asymmetry, where the ones who feel least always defeat the ones who feel most. Machiavelli wrote that power belongs to those who can detach themselves from the storms that rule other men. Crypto turns this idea into mathematics. The few understand a brutal truth. Markets do not reward the strongest hands. They reward the clearest minds. These clear minds move through crypto like ghosts, silent, unhurried, unreadable. While the many chase hype, the few study cycles. While the many ask when moon, the few ask when fear peaks. While the many buy because influencers say it's time, the few buy because the market is drowning in hopelessness. While the many try to predict the future, the few observe the present with ruthless clarity. This is Machiavellian strategy, not chasing power, but positioning oneself where power naturally flows. Asterisk, asterisk. The many react, the few anticipate. Asterisk, asterisk. They realize early that price is not the game. Sentiment is the game. Narrative is the game. Emotion is the game. The market moves long before the chart does, in whispers, in tone shifts, in subtle changes in community behavior. The few study these signals like generals studying the battlefield. When the crowd becomes euphoric, gives they prepare exits. When the crowd becomes fearful, gives they prepare entries. When the crowd becomes silent, gives they accumulate. When the crowd becomes hysterical, gives they strike. This is not luck. This is not intuition. This is discipline mixed with observation, wrapped in detachment. Machiavelli called this the virtue of prudence, the ability to act not on impulse, but on timing. Timing is the closest thing to sorcery in crypto. The few wield it like a weapon because they know something the masses refuse to accept. You don't beat the market. You beat the masses. And the masses are predictable. They don't study liquidity. They study influencers. They don't study cycles. They study hype. They don't study market structure. They study price. They enter with excitement. They exit with panic. They repeat until broke. But the few? They reverse this cycle. They enter when the crowd panics. They exit when the crowd rejoices. They move when others freeze. They freeze when others move. Machiavelli said, "The wise man does in the beginning what the fool does in the end." Crypto proves this with merciless precision. Look at any major bottom: blood, despair, exhaustion, silence. Look at any major top: euphoria, memes, confidence, noise. These are not accidents. These are signals. The few read them. The many drown in them. But there is something deeper, something the audience must feel in their bones. The few win because they do not take things personally. They don't fall in love with projects. They don't marry their bags. They don't build identities around tokens. They don't see dips as insults. They don't see pumps as validation. They don't see losses as punishments. They see everything as information. And information, in their hands, becomes a weapon. The few understand that crypto is not random. It is ritualistic. Every cycle has a beginning. Every cycle has an end. Every narrative fades. Every mania dies. Every collapse cleanses. Every winter buries the unprepared and crowns the patient. This is the part the masses never understand. The market is not attacking them. It is testing them, testing their patience, testing their discipline, testing their ego, testing their emotional identity. And most fail these tests, not because they are weak, but because they are human. The few succeed because they stop trying to be human inside the market. They became observers, detached from the chaos. In a world driven by fear and greed, the emotionally neutral become gods. This is the silent secret the audience must feel. Crypto does not reward desire. Crypto rewards discipline. The few accumulate during despair. They hold during boredom. They sell during ecstasy. They walk away during mania. They return during silence. This is the rhythm of the rulers. Not loud, not dramatic, not emotional. Just precise. Machiavelli wrote that the greatest rulers were not the strongest, but the most strategic, the ones who understood timing and human nature better than anyone else. Crypto is no different. In this digital battlefield, the many lose their minds. The few study the minds of the many. The many chase gains. The few chase information. The many obey their emotions. The few control their emotions. And in a world shaped by liquidity and belief, the throne always goes to the one who sees clearly. And in that silence, the truth whispers. Every cycle ends the same way, with silence, not the peaceful kind, the heavy, suffocating silence that follows disaster. The silence of portfolios drained, of dreams shattered, of believers wandering through ruins they once called opportunity. Crypto winters do not freeze markets. They freeze hope. And in that cold, the truth becomes impossible to ignore. Most people were never prepared to survive this world. During bull runs, everyone feels chosen. Everyone feels destined. Everyone believes they're on the brink of a new life. But Machiavelli warned that the crowd confuses fortune with skill and luck with destiny. In crypto, this confusion becomes fatal. When the candles turn red, the crowd begins to unravel. At first, they wait. Then they justify. Then they deny. Then they pray. Then they panic. Then they disappear. Their exit is always quiet. People who once posted gains vanish. People who once bragged fall into silence. People who once believed the loudest now carry the deepest regret. And this is where the few emerge, not as winners of a game, but as survivors of a purge, because crypto is not a financial ecosystem. It is a psychological filter, a natural selection of temperament, discipline, and emotional clarity. The many fall for a simple reason. They wanted wealth faster than they wanted wisdom. They wanted shortcuts. They wanted miracles. They wanted the ending without understanding the story. They wanted the crown without surviving the war. Crypto is a battlefield disguised as a marketplace. And on every battlefield, the majority fall first. Losses do not break them. Their identity does. They built their sense of self around the idea of making it. They believed wealth would give them meaning. They believed profit would give them power. They believed success would erase the emptiness they carried long before crypto. But when the market turned against them, those illusions shattered, and what remained was not just financial loss, but emotional exposure. They didn't just lose money. They lost the story they were telling themselves. Machiavelli understood this deeply. A man driven by desire is easily destroyed when his desire collapses. And so the many fall, not because they are less intelligent, but because they are more emotional. Yet, in the ashes of their collapse, something else happens. Something Machiavelli predicted centuries ago. A new ruling class emerges. Not the loudest, not the luckiest, not the ones with the largest bags, but the ones who return to themselves. The ones who learn detachment. The ones who faced the brutality of the market and rebuilt a calmer mind. The ones who stopped chasing wealth and began studying the forces that drive it. These individuals rise quietly, no shouts, no celebration, no ego. They ascend not through hype, but through clarity. They become the new princes of the digital age, not monarchs, not tyrants, but individuals who understand the fragility of the crowd and the power of self-mastery. They realize that crypto is not about beating others, but beating their own impulses. They learn that survival is not luck, but discipline. They discover that power is not in wealth, but in perception, and most importantly, they learn to move with silence, because silence is the ultimate Machiavellian skill, the ability to observe without reacting, to act without announcing, to win without boasting. The new princes do not preach. They do not brag. They do not chase trends. They do not fear crashes. They do not worship bull runs. They flow with the cycle like water around stone. In their stillness, they see the world as it truly is. A system where the emotional feed the patient, where the impulsive enrich the disciplined, where the many fall, so the few can rise. This is the cruel symmetry of crypto, the same symmetry Machiavelli saw in politics, war and power. And it is here, in this dark equilibrium, that the viewer must understand the final truth. You cannot change the nature of the market, but you can change the nature of the one facing it. And in that transformation, a new identity is born, not as prey, but as observer, not as believer, but as strategist, not as victim, but as sovereign. In the ruins of the many, the few become unshakable. And in the silence, the truth whispers. You've walked through the shadows most people refuse to enter. You've seen how wealth is built, not through luck or noise or frenzy, but through clarity, detachment, and the courage to see the world without illusion. Most will ignore these truths. Most will return to the chaos. Most will keep obeying the emotions that destroy them. But if you've reached this point, you are not like most. You feel the shift, the quiet awakening, the uncomfortable clarity that changes how you move through the world. So stay, think deeper, look beyond the narratives the many obey, If you choose to continue this path, this dark, honest, unfiltered journey into power and perception, then join us. Subscribe. Not for content, but for consciousness. Because those who see clearly rise quietly.